Hey Preds Nation, Johnny here, and here is another video in my series of videos leading up to the Preds hosting the 2023 NHL Interdraft, where I look back at previous Preds Interdrafts. This time I wanted to look back at picks the Preds took that maybe turned into something small, maybe were a bust, but the thing is, who came within 5 to 10 picks after the Preds picked that turned into something great for that team. Now, there's no guarantee that if the Preds had taken said player that I am going to mention year for year, I'm not going to go every year because in the last couple years you can't really gauge it until further on down the line. And, basically, more times than not, your picks are going to miss because so many players are picked in every NHL draft. They don't all make it to the pros. But it may be a little fun to look back and see who the Preds could have taken and how it could have maybe changed the team or even changed who the Preds took later on. As nice as Denis Archipov was those first few seasons for the Preds building their franchise when they took him 60th overall in 1998, 4 picks later, the Tampa Bay Lightning would select Brad Richards, who would go on to play the better part of 15 seasons, win 1 ring with Lightning, go to another final, and score nearly 300 goals. Now remember, as I discussed the 1999 NHL Interdraft and what could have been for the Preds, keep in mind that these things can be very subjective. But oh, what could have been, because at 205th overall that year, the Preds took a man by the name of Kyle Kettles, who would never suit up in goal for the Preds. He never even suited up for the Milwaukee Admirals. But 5 picks after that, the Detroit Red Wings scouting staff knew of a great prospect by the name of Henrik Zetterberg, who would go on to score nearly 350 goals in his NHL career and would lead the Red Wings to back-to-back finals. Even 2 picks after that, the Preds could have had a guy by the name of Radim Verbata who scored just shy of 300 NHL goals. In the year 2000, okay, let's skip ahead to the 7th round. This was the Preds leading into their 3rd NHL season where they felt comfortable building their team with Mike Dunham and Thomas Vokoun in net. And the Preds decided at 203rd overall to take a flyer on a name of a goalie by the name of Yuri Pinkel. But guess who they could have had at 205th overall that summer? A 459 game winner taken by the New York Rangers, Henrik Lundqvist. Nice to dream that the Preds could have had success in goal if he develops the same way with the Preds that he did the Rangers that much quicker into the franchise's history. But remember who was eventually taken by the Preds late in the 2004 NHL draft, Preds fans. If the Preds take Henrik Lundqvist in 2000 and it turns out just as well for them as he did for the Rangers, there's no Pekka Rinne statue sitting outside 501 Broadway, is there? In the 2001 NHL Interdraft, much earlier, the Preds had a bust in Thomas Slovak, who went 42nd overall, when the Preds could have had 294 goal scorer Michael Camilleri 7 picks later. The 2003 Interdraft was won for the ages simply on a talent that went in the first round, much less the fact that the Preds hosted it. So let's not worry too much about who the Preds could have had in the first round instead of Ryan Suter. There were some good years with him before he turned the back on the franchise and went to Minnesota. Things start getting interesting when we look at the 2nd round. As we remember, the Preds took Shea Weber later on in the 2nd round, but some of you may also remember that fan favorite Kevin Kline was taken 37th overall, and even though he was later traded to the New York Rangers for Del Zotto, yay for that trade, take a gander who was taken 8 picks after Kevin Kline was taken that the Preds could have had. Patrice Bergeron. Imagine what might have been in the 2010s with Bergeron in Preds gold instead of with the Bruins uniform. In 2004, next to Scotty Upshall and definitely the 2 Preds goalies that they had taken in the first round prior to Yaroslav Askarov if there is one round that Preds management and Preds fan base as a whole would pretty much like a redo of, it's the first round selection that the Preds took in the 2004 draft. After seeing Alexander Radulov vote for the KHL, and then after giving him a second chance, seeing him burn the team along with Kostitsyn in Arizona, Preds, do what you do best. Look at that guy who went 29th overall to the Washington Capitals, Mike Green. Take a defenseman and develop him, and you have an NHL All-Star defenseman along with Shea Weber on your blue line. In the 2005 NHL Interdraft, yes, it was a different set of rules coming out of the 2004-2005 lockout that led the Preds to have the 18th selection. But later on in the first round, instead of taking Ryan Parent 18th overall, take a gander at who the Preds could have had. The Preds could have had Tuukka Rask 21st overall, who was later taken by the Maple Leafs. They could have had TJ Oshie, who was taken 24th overall by the St. Louis Blues. And heck, the Preds could have even saved themselves the headache of eventually trading for this player I'm about to mention when they sent Patrick Hornquist to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They could have had James Neal, who went to the Dallas Stars 33rd overall in that draft. I think the 2007 NHL Interdraft is personally my most frustrating one to review of past Preds Interdrafts of what they could have had, because after embarrassingly getting knocked out in the first round that spring and having upcoming ownership issues to deal with, the Preds had to clear cap space, so they had to trade away the negotiating rights to Peter Forsberg, who they had just acquired at the 2007 NHL Interdraft, back to the Flyers, and they got back the first round pick that they sent to the Flyers. The Preds ended up taking Jonathan Blum, 23rd overall, who would only score 7, yes, you heard me right, I did not stutter, 7 goals in his NHL career. Instead, 3 picks later, they could have had David Perron, who is still playing to this day, who has just shy of 300 NHL goals for his career at this point. And finally, because I said sooner NHL drafts than this one are much more subjective because guys are still having their NHL careers, the 2010 NHL Interdraft for the Preds. They took serviceable defenseman Anthony Bitetto, 168th overall. But alas, what they could have had just 10 picks later. Mark Stone was taken by the Ottawa Senators, and as of this recording, he is about to play Game 1 of the 2023 Stanley Cup Finals, and to his career at this point has 200 NHL regular season goals. That's about it for the real big misses for the Preds. The most recent NHL seasons, like I alluded to, are still shaking themselves out, and we don't really know just yet at the pick that the Preds took a said player at if they could have improved vastly by taking somebody else until more time has passed. But remember, this video was more for fun than to be angry at the management at 501 Broadway. And remember, for those who may be frustrated watching this video and adding their fuel to the fire of General Manager David Poile, just remember, every NHL team has stories like this for their team as well as players that they could have had. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. As always, click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really like it. You can find my social media by clicking on a channel name. Tell all your friends about Redemption. Fear not, Preds Nation. The arrival of new Preds prospects is nearly upon us with the commencement of the 2023 NHL Entry Draft.